Welcome to Toni Unleashed, the podcast, where I unleash the truth about all things pets. My research and anecdotal evidence, paired with expert interviews, will help your pet thrive. I'm here to answer questions, share insights, and spread awareness about what's really going on in the world of pets. I'm Toni Unleashed with 25 years of experience in the pet space. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Toni Unleashed, and today I am thrilled to have Pets After Dark back. And Caroline and Howard, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us, Toni.
Love being here.
Always. Looking gorgeous as ever.
Oh, you're so sweet. And we, this time, are going to talk about the cost and state
of veterinary care.
of veterinary care. When I have to memorize something, I'm fucked.
Okay. You know, good news is, and see, you want to know why I have an iPad, because I don't remember.
So you guys just did, your newsletter's awesome. So you just did.
Thank you.
It is.
Thank you, because we work hard on it. You know?
I asked him the other day, I'm like, are you really doing this newsletter all on your own? And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so much, because I need one. And
Howard does all the work and I chime in, by the way.
Yeah.
That's pretty much how it is these days.
I like how that is.
Once in a while, he'll ask me to, do a little piece on my own, but most of the time he does most of the thing, including the formatting.
Yeah, but I mean, I think we like getting content from others. I mean, it's nice to sort of step out and be able to hear opinions from people. The opinions, when you read something, it's funny because when you read something that you think like, oh my God, this is not cool. Because people write stuff that, those are the pieces that are the best, because you have, we had somebody that we know very well the other day, literally unsubscribed.
Because she was so mad about what we wrote. And, we thought about it. And at first I was like a little shocked. And then we're like, you know what? We're ruffling feathers. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a sign of success.
Making change.
Yes.
Yeah.
I said, when I saw that, I said, we won.
Making waves.
Because you made somebody, it means they're reading it.
Yep.
And they're thinking about what you're saying. They don't have to agree.
Yep.
And most of the time, it's not our own opinion, right? It's others that we're soliciting.
Sure.
But, we also have opinions, and I think we're strong in our opinions. And I think that I think, as you know, as a business owner, right, you have to be convicted. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, why do it?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I mean, we did a big deep dive into the cost and state of veterinary care because it is on everybody's mind that going to the vet is expensive. Mm-hmm. And, I think it's interesting for people to know and find out why it's expensive. What is going on in the veterinary world that's causing, these prices to rise? And is it something that's justified? Is it just, big corporations taking advantage? So we felt like we needed to do a big, deep dive. Uh-huh. And part of it was also inspired by my hometown. Huh. As a veterinarian, I'm like a member of all these Facebook groups, and I'm still a member of a Facebook group from veterinarians in Quebec, some of whom are all my, old classmates and colleagues. Huh. And there had been recently a media blitz on the Canadian Broadcasting Channel about the cost of veterinary care, and that it was all corporations and they weren't forthcoming, and how veterinarians were basically abusing, people, and how expensive it had gotten. Mm-hmm. And it was really painting veterinarians in a terrible light. And veterinarians were reacting pretty strongly to that. And we kind of, and that's part of what we were talking about initially in our newsletter. And then it devolved into the two of us doing a really deep dive into, what's going on in the veterinary world across the world, right?
Yes. And what, I think one of the things that's been really interesting has been if you look at the way veterinary medicine works, and one of the things that we've heard over and over and over again from veterinarians and patients alike is this whole, what is corporate America doing in veterinary medicine? Okay, that's it's a hard, hot topic that's been, it almost gives people the willies when they talk about it. And so I think what we did, and I think we actually achieved it, oddly enough, okay, which is, we wanted to dig into that and get the opinions of veterinarians. Yeah. Okay, well, is this good or is this bad? And we have examples in both cases of it being good and bad. But then our final entry, which came out yesterday, was we interviewed Dr. Hogan, and who's the head of orthopedics at UPMC.
Right.
So you've got a big, massive job in a big, massive institution. Yeah. And, the line of questioning was really around, is business good for you or bad for you, right? How do you use that to your advantage? Because if you look and talk to people in the veterinary field, they don't want to talk about business. And we had more than 2 different veterinarians in this series independently said, well, no one goes into veterinary medicine to make money. Okay. Except, I might argue, the biggest owner of veterinary practices in the world is Blue Pearl. Okay, when they own like over 3,000 clinics around the world, they're not doing that because they're, good Samaritans. They're doing that to make money.
Yep.
So is it bad? It doesn't have to be. It might not be good right now, but the human counterpart of it is more money brings economies of scale. More money brings more resources and better technology and better process.
More education.
More research.
Right. It's all of those things. And that makes it better.
Yeah.
But ultimately also it translates into the bottom line, which increases costs to people who go to veterinary hospitals to seek care. And so there's almost like a dichotomy between, what is on offer and what is perceived as value. Yeah. Right. And so I think that for us, it was really important for people to understand why things are so expensive and why it's not necessarily a bad thing to deal with big business and corporation, and that there's actually a way to make this transition into corporate
where it's a good thing.
And try to take example from the human medicine counterpart, which is why I think the last entry in that series was kind of a way to round everything up and say, all right, we heard from pro-corporate people, we heard from anti-corporate people, and in the end, I think it's here to stay. How do we make it work for everyone? Which I think it is what's been accomplished.
What's really interesting, and this is something that I started thinking about over the last week. Like I didn't think about this the whole time, and then after I did the interview with Dr. Hogan, it sort of set off a little light bulb in my head. Yeah. Which is when you talk to people in the veterinary world, and they separate veterinary medicine and business. They're 2 separate entities, right? They're veterinarians that are treating animals, and then there's the business of veterinary medicine. Okay? And the business of veterinary medicine is where the corporations are present. They're not really present inside the room where you're treating the animal. You don't really want them to be. You want compassion and
for sure.
Okay.
Yes.
But So there's always that delineation when you talk about those two things. When you talk about human medicine, people say it's, my insurance is expensive. Caroline recently had shoulder surgery, and I think we even told you we had the crazy amounts of money that they charge you for these procedures, which are just like, it's insane. But nobody makes the delineation in human medicine of human care versus business. It's just all one thing sort of rolled up in one. And it's really fascinating how those two different areas of medical practice are thinking and looking and treating business so completely differently.
Sure.
One of them is an enemy, and the other is like, okay, let's embrace a dysfunction. Let's figure out how we can make this work to our benefit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what's been happening in medicine is that the patient load has increased incredibly, right? And in order for physicians to be able to handle the patient load, they have to have a whole support team. And everybody has their place and everybody has their job. And of course, all of that is very, very costly, right? But it's to improve efficiency. And when you try to do the same in veterinary medicine, of course, it increases cost considerably because you have staff you have to pay and you have support staff and you have cleaning staff. And ultimately, clients want the experience of being able to be seen with their animal, but that requires a whole thing behind it that really, really costs a lot of money, ultimately. And then, you have salaries in veterinary medicine, veterinary technicians, support staff, which has been lagging behind for years and years and years. And they're the backbone of what we do as a profession. I couldn't do the quarter of what I'm doing without my technicians and my support staff. They need to be compensated adequately. And that's really, really important because that's how you motivate people. That's how you get more people. It's no secret that we've had a shortage of, good support staff and veterinary technicians since COVID. And so that has contributed to increasing cost. And that to me is a positive thing because if you want great people working on your animal, you have to pay them.
Well, I feel like this is similar with human medicine and veterinary medicine because we have a shortage of RNs and LPNs and that support staff in human medicine, and they're not treated well. Right. They're probably compensated better in comparison to the veterinary world.
Better. Yeah.
But I think you've got both things happening in the veterinary world. That support staff, those vet techs are not compensated to the point that they should be. And they, in some situations, aren't appreciated. And
100%.
Yeah. And same with nurses.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
And there's a shortage on both of those. So both systems are broken, right?
Except here's the one main thing that I saw.
Yeah.
When a veterinary ER is at capacity, they shut the door.
Yeah.
They say that's it.
They can in
one
human
doctor,
medicine.
2 doctors here. That's it. We can't take any more dogs or cats.
Yeah.
And if you're one of those pet owners in that situation, it's overwhelming and it's scary. And if you can't go there and you wanted to go there because your pet was sick and they're at capacity, they can't take you.
Right.
That doesn't happen in human medicine. Right? I mean, it just doesn't. It doesn't mean that you don't wait in the ER a long time because you do. And we've all in this room have waited months to get an appointment with your doctor.
Been in that waiting room.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But we also see there's a big difference there. And one of the things that Dr. Hogan said the other day, which was interesting, was he said that we just have to figure out how to be more efficient every day. Mm-hmm. So instead of trying to, just adding more doctors into the system doesn't necessarily make it better. Mm-hmm. It might help. I mean, obviously, you have an ER where you have one doctor, two doctors. If you add 4 or 5 doctors, you can take that many more patients.
Yep.
But with the staff that you have, learning to be more efficient and continuously working to be more efficient, I think is one of the things that business brings to medicine, right? That veterinarians and medical doctors don't. I mean, they medical doctors, veterinarians, they come in, they know how to treat patients.
Sure.
But they're probably not great at doing books.
Probably not.
The one reason I get when veterinary ERs are closing their door is not because the doctor can't handle any more cases. It's because ultimately they want 2.5 to 3 support staff per dog or cat that's hospitalized in their ICU.
Wow.
If they don't have the support staff, they will not take a chance on keeping a pet in the hospital because then it's taking risks. So I think it's really important to kind of emphasize the fact that it's the support staff that's really, really, really like the limiting factor that's important to stimulate, pay well, educate, right?
2.5 to 3 per animal is needed. Mm-hmm. Wow. And
actually, the most recent number was 5 to 1.
Yeah. When you're talking about general practice
is 5 to 1. So for every doctor, there's 5 supporting
staff
members.
But that includes your reception, your cleaning staff.
The admins, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Not just seeing every pet, but you divide that across the staff, and then so it's a big number.
Yeah,
it's not.
So, do you think, Caroline, that because dogs, cats, small animals cannot speak and we're almost flying blind when it comes to a diagnosis, do you think that exacerbates the situation? Do you know what
I know what you mean. I don't think that's necessarily true. And by the situation, you mean the amount of support staff needed to monitor and
driving up costs because it's...
So you ask a really good question. And actually, that's not just in veterinary medicine. I think that ordering tests and ordering more tests is something that's almost like an issue with young human doctors also. And it's not because you can that you should.
Yeah.
And I think that a test will never replace your clinical sense, a good history, a good physical exam, and, not looking for zebras when you're looking at, I don't know what the expression is. I'm so French now. But,
I was like, what expression is she?
Where am I going with this? It's not always necessary to run a full blood panel, x-rays for a simple case of diarrhea.
Sure.
Basically. Okay.
Yeah.
Which, I almost added to that last newsletter, except I thought we say the word diarrhea too much. So, I wanted to kind of keep it less diarrheic. But, sometimes a case of simple diarrhea is a case of simple diarrhea. And there is a tendency in medicine as well as veterinary medicine to assume that standard of care requires you to do all the possible tests and eliminate any possible condition before you make your diagnosis. Mm-hmm. And sometimes common sense is still what you need in medicine.
Mm-hmm. And experience.
And experience, of course. I think it's easier for an experienced clinician to say, actually, I don't need an MRI today on your pet.
Yeah.
I think that when you're young and insecure, it may be more tempting to make sure you eliminate everything and don't get caught with a foot wrong. I think I'm more likely in veterinary practice to be less pushy for tests than some of my younger counterparts. And again, it's because of confidence and experience and working with owners. But ultimately, also, care is a conversation. Care is a conversation between the physician, whether it's a veterinarian or a human doctor, and the either patient or pet owner.
Yep.
And it's about discussing the possibilities, discussing what we're willing and not willing to do, and yes, discussing our budget. And within the confines of that, what we can and cannot do. You love me. You love me.
You can take him home.
I
I don't know why he's doing that.
Well, because, I'm the herding dog queen, I think. So that's how I feel about it. I think that, sometimes it's important to use your common sense and not always, think that you have to go look for, the worst case scenario every single time.
Sure. And there's so many factors because you're also dealing with the pet parent who's likely frantic or very worried and concerned and
absolutely. And sometimes I will do a test, not because I think it's necessary, but because I've discussed it with the owners and they're so afraid of X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And then I'll say, listen, I don't think that's it, but will it make you feel better if we prove it to you?
Right.
And when it's yes, then I'll do it.
Sure.
But I think, communication is the most important thing that you can ever have with your patient or client. And Dr. Hogan himself actually said it so well.
Yeah, he said, but yes, what he said was he tells his young, he teaches as well. And he teaches his students in medical school that you can't order an MRI every time someone walks in the door.
Right.
And he said, before you got to medical school, you didn't even know what an MRI was. I mean, when you were 15 years old and you hurt your elbow, you didn't go to the doctor saying, can I have an MRI? That's something that as a young doctor you were touching on before, young doctors lacking experience, lacking intuition, right? Lacking years of history of recognizing something when they see it, says you don't need an MRI. I can tell by just doing this that this is what's going on here. And Dr. Hogan said that he teaches his students that because it's not something intuitively that you would think. You immediately go into medicine and you say, oh, I have all these resources at my fingertips now. Yes, let's get an MRI. Let's get X-rays and a CT scan, a whole slew of tests. But that's not necessarily the best possible way to practice. And that's also what drives up the pricing and the costs of medicine.
Absolutely.
Too much testing.
Yes.
Too much testing. So I know that part of the series, there was a concern that there's a big gap with expense. Some of it is so expensive that a lot of people can't afford it, and we're getting outpriced. So let's talk about that a little bit.
What is the solution? And it's so difficult, and it's an issue that you see and you have seen all over the world. This is not just in the US that we're having this issue. Actually, and that's really interesting. It's been an issue in Mexico also. And Mexico has now a government-founded veterinary clinics to be able to provide care to even the least fortunate.
Really?
Of course, it's in its beginnings and it's controversial, and anything that's government regulated and funded has its challenges also. So it hasn't really gotten on its feet just yet, but there's definitely a push in certain countries to be able to address the needs of a population that might not be as able to afford, the, more esoteric care. Some veterinarians in Mexico are even like required to go give some hours there.
Wow.
At the beginning of their career, which would be something that, might be very, very interesting to contemplate. Can you imagine if as a vet student, when you graduate with like, $500,000 in debt, some of it, was reimbursed by the government in exchange for you spending 2 to 3 years giving some of your time to
a clinic type of atmosphere.
Yeah, where, people could go and it would be less expensive. I'm dreaming here on this podcast. Yeah.
I think also that, but it's not just Mexico. I mean, the UK has these issues. I mean, we sort of walked around the world for a minute here and saw that this was happening everywhere. Homeward, that one of the solutions is there's now the onset of more veterinary schools coming into play that weren't here before, which produces more veterinarians. But
is that the solution?
It's not exponential. It's not, I think we did the math a couple weeks ago. Do we say at the end of the year there was going to be like, it might produce maybe, what do we say, 2,500 more veterinarians or something? Yeah. Each veterinarian class is 100 people. So if you open 20 schools, that's 2,000 people. But there's attrition also. There's people retiring. There's people leaving
the profession
altogether. So it's not really, you're not really adding 2,000. You might be adding 1,000.
Right.
Because 1,000 are leaving.
Right.
So I don't think that solves the problem. I think efficiency helps to solve the problem. I think that getting better procedures.
Better pet insurance might help. I think that they're very, very popular in Europe. And, I think that, there's a much larger proportion of people who actually own pet insurance in Europe.
Huh.
I'm not sure it's a long-term solution because we all see how insurance companies have been strained by all these events that happened in Florida, then in California. So premiums are going up, and that, ultimately pet insurance is going to pay the price also. Yep. But there's, it's not a secret that the Humane Animal Rescue Clinic is, always super busy. I think this part of the solution is being cost conscious as a veterinarian and always communicate with what your person in front of you is able to afford.
Sure.
Again, it's not because your dog ruptures an ACL that he necessarily needs a $7,000 TPLO. There are other strategies that can be adopted for the person who can't afford that. Ultimately, we can all dream. I think that, there's always going to be care that's going to be beyond people's capacity.
For sure. Is TPLO now at 7,000?
About.
Oh, okay.
About. I have clients that are well over $20,000 paying for chemotherapy for their dog. And that's because they want to.
Yeah.
As a veterinarian,
do you want to talk about that?
I feel like it's my job to tell them that that's available, but my line to people is always, it's not because you can that you should.
Yeah.
And, you have to think long and hard about this commitment you're making. And, if people are going to put themselves in financial difficulty,
right,
then I have to have a deeper conversation because, it really has to do with outlook, outcome, prognosis. Is that really something you want to do? And what are your reasons for doing that? And then there are some people who are doing it for the right reasons and they know what they're getting into. Who am I to judge?
Mm-hmm. I 100% agree with who am I to judge.
Exactly.
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't.
You love your pet.
Yeah.
I mean, I think at the end
Yeah.
of the day, what we're all talking about sort of starts at the same place, which is we love our pets. Well, what can we do to make our pets' lives better? If they're not healthy, how can we get them healthy? And how can we get them healthy as fast as possible and for the right amount of money? Right? I mean, isn't it?
Right.
You don't want to, it's hard to insert that last line into the conversation for the right amount of money. But the reality of it is that we all know people who make decisions on care for their pet based on how much it costs.
Absolutely.
Right? And it would be disingenuous to not say that. It's right. So, do I do this? Well, it's going to be $18,000. Okay. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
Does that make you a bad person? No.
No.
Not at all.
No.
And it also doesn't make the veterinary industry a bad industry.
No.
So I think that's where it's happening.
Yeah.
And they
I want to say something which is really fascinating, though. If you go to the doctors and you have been diagnosed with something terrible, your insurance will pay probably for a good bit of it.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
You don't really have a conversation with your significant other or your family and say, well, I have a bad kidney, but you know what? It's going to cost a lot of money, so I'm going to just leave it go. Okay, I mean, right? You don't have those conversations in human medicine. You do in veterinary medicine, and it's maybe not that crass, but that's a reality that happens in veterinary medicine.
Yeah.
And so I think if we could figure out how to overcome that piece, you mentioned pet insurance. I mean, the one thing pet insurance did was they followed human insurance, which is they're both terrible. Okay? They're both terrible. Okay?
Yeah.
But I mean, if we could get over that hurdle of right, I mean, I think that would be a step in the right direction.
Right.
I think.
I mean, maybe we'll always have like a 2-speed healthcare for veterinary care as well as human care, and it's a conundrum. I don't know if we'll ever find the perfect solution. But I think that Mexico has tried, and I think that should inspire some to try to kind of follow their lead and see if there would be a way to provide care for the least fortunate. Because it's, public health also. Pets need to be rabies vaccinated. Pets need to be dewormed.
And their mental, they help our mental health.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't think, some will argue that having a pet is a luxury. I don't think that that's a fair statement. I think that anybody who wants a pet should get help to be able to care for said pet and be able to enjoy its benefits and company.
I agree.
That is where I draw the line. I don't think owning a pet is a luxury, and I don't think it should be treated as such.
Yeah.
I mean, HARP, Animal Friends.
Yeah.
These organizations are set up not just for adoption, but they're also set up to care for veterinary care for pets that
Are they that much cheap? I don't think they're that much of a savings to go there. Maybe there it is. Okay.
And I think they also probably are more charitable in the care that they're giving on different occasions. I mean, they have money that allows them to provide care for those that can't.
Yeah.
Right?
Correct.
I mean, one of the things that we had, sort of headed down the road last year, not to talk about Pets After Dark, but we should talk about Pets After Dark, was, us going and donating, a number of subscriptions to these charitable organizations so that we could be available to pet owners.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that goes to the other thing that's near and dear to our heart is to be able to do our part in access to care.
Yeah.
And I think that keeping pets at home, there's too many pets that are abandoned or surrendered because of costly,
Totally true.
care that could be kept at home if we were able to provide some advice, some care,
Yeah.
And I think, as a veterinarian, to me, it's really important to be able to kind of provide and maintain that human animal bond. And it's not just, finances. Sometimes it's, a person who cannot take a car and go to a veterinary clinic. I mean, we have had a few of those calls at Pets After Dark because, this person is just unable, either has a handicap or doesn't have a car and is unable to take their pet to a veterinarian. And then at least we can provide the best answers, comfort, advice. And that's all part of the greater conversation, which is access to care, which is something that I'm super passionate about. And so are you.
Yeah, I mean, everybody should be able to have that for their pet. And I think that one of the things that as we started sort of going down the road of Pets After Dark and we started trying to figure out how can we give this to more people. I mean, that was the the ongoing conversation. When you talk about people getting in the car and going to the emergency room, right off the top of your head, that transaction's going to be $1,200, $1,500, $1,800, right? It's just
because they're going to want to do lab work and X-rays and
right, and they do lab work and X-rays. Okay.
Yep.
But if we keep some of those people from going there because they don't need to go there because let's say they call us and we say, yeah, you know what, you can go see your vet tomorrow. That person saved that amount of money. The pet still, well-being of the pet is still accounted for.
Yep.
And they can see their vet tomorrow. And I think that that's a big piece of the puzzle.
And you're helping to improve the veterinary industry.
We think so.
We think. Yeah, we hope. That's the goal. I mean, the goal is to, make the ERs less congested so that when real demanding cases come through the front door, they can handle it and they're not being burdened with less emergent cases.
That's correct. Excuse me, I'm fondling a dog.
So
you're feeling humpy.
I maybe I gave him too much CBD.
Oh, you're feeling quite frisky. Yeah. Yes, you are. Oh, let's give you a butt rub and I'll put a smile on your face.
So Pets After Dark can improve this whole situation and bring peace of mind to pet parents.
We believe it. And to be honest, we've been doing this for a year now. The goodwill we bring and, the comments we get in return, it's never, oh my God, I wish I had never called you.
Yeah.
It's, oh my God, you're an angel.
Yeah.
Oh my God, thank you so much for what you've done for me or supporting me through this weekend or, guiding me or whatever the outcome. Whatever the outcome.
Yeah.
I have never had anything but a heartfelt thank you so much for being there for us. So that's the most rewarding thing for me. And that has led us to have conversations about how can we
do it for more people?
Make that available to more people. And, we started this thing having an idea of something that would be a more concierge service to now being really passionate about what if everybody could have access to this? What if we were able to provide this for everyone?
Well, that's Amazing. So do you want to touch a little bit on the 5 parts? Sure. Like who you interviewed and kind of just a little, tell me just a little snippet of what each kind of focused on.
So the first part we've already the first and second part we've kind of discussed already, which was
perfect.
The first part was really sort of talking about the shortage of veterinarians and what we're going to do this. Vet's coming out of veterinary school with a lot of debt, and the overwhelming burden that puts on them, and it's you go out of school and then you have years and years and years of debt to pay off. So it's not that enticing, right? And it's
glamorous.
So that was the first piece. The second piece we also touched on, which was what's going on around the world, which is, the problem is common around the world. The third series was, we referred to it as a family business, which, we talked actually about Caroline's practice, and we interviewed Larry Gerson, who started the practice.
Yeah.
In 1977.
Wow.
Yep. One guy.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then we interviewed Steph, and we did this independent of one another. So they weren't in the same room together. And that was sort of the fun part about it, because we asked a lot of the same questions. And it was pretty interesting, actually.
To see how they would respond a generation apart. And it was really cool. That was actually a great piece. I'm super proud of this one.
Yeah, it was fun.
And it was great to see that both of them actually said the hardest part of owning a business, which I'm sure, Toni, you have discovered also.
We talked about it yesterday.
Is managing
people
and keeping people happy.
Yeah.
And, that rang true to the both of them. And so that was, really, really cool. And then the one after that was the perspective of a veterinary specialist, Dr. Myers, who started with his wife, Dana, a internal medicine mobile practice. And he's been in the Pittsburgh area for over 20 years. And it was the take of an older school, specialists seeing how medicine was changing and how some things about it were not that great. And then, the counterpart to that was the Dr. Hogan piece, which kind of tied everything together.
Interesting with Larry Gerson, I think, Larry was my vet when I first got a dog.
Yeah.
So that's 1987. Okay. And he had one other doctor, I think, over there.
Well, he started alone. Then I think Dr. Doherty.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Like later.
Okay. At any rate, and he and I sort of had a quick kinship because we're both scuba divers.
Oh.
Okay. And so I would go to see him with my dog, and he would close the door, and there would be people in the waiting room. He'd close the door and he'd examine my dog. And then he'd say, "So I'm going to Bon Air diving this. Have you ever?" And then he would sit there and talk to me for 25 minutes about scuba diving and different dive sites that we'd both been to. And then I'd walk out and there was a room full of people, and I'd say, "How much do I owe to the front desk?" They said, "Oh no, Dr. Gerson, he said, don't worry about this."
Yeah.
That would never happen today. That's not Dr. Gerson. That's not how medicine works. That's not how business works. But that was an interesting generational thing back then. That's how people developed their business. They had goodwill.
Yeah.
And also, life was different then.
Yeah.
The cost of living was different then. When you were a veterinarian, it's almost as if you made money in spite of yourself, just because there weren't that many, Now there's such a need for a lot of support staff, because as veterinary medicine becomes more complicated, you need more people around you. You need more money. And, and if you're going to run a tight ship, there's some things that, although, between you and me, once in a while, I will let people go without paying, because... What are you going to do? This is how we are.
Well, look, you're in the business of taking care of people's family members, right? So compassion. If you're not compassionate in this business,
For sure.
then you have no chance.
So, and even, when I owned, I still own one healthy pet product store, but I have a quick story to round that out. I had a customer call totally out of dog food. And he's like, I'm never going to be able to make it there. And this was like probably 5 years in my business. And he was a regular customer. I did know, I knew of him. And I said, don't worry about it. I will leave a bag of food. I'm going to put it in a trash bag behind the store so that, it's just not sitting out there. I said, just pay me whenever you can pay me. And he talked about that for years. For years. So, and the fact that the veterinary industry and the medical industry is a little bit broken right now, I think that we all just need to have a little bit of grace with one another.
Yes.
And give people a fucking break.
Mm-hmm.
Most of us are doing our best. And we have to trust that we're doing our best.
So it's very easy to fall into the trap of, this is just business and dehumanize yourself. Mm-hmm. The only way that this works, and again, Dr. Hogan, if I'm going back to him, it's, if you're going to navigate this corporate world we're getting into successfully, you have to stay true to your core, to your values, to your empathy, and to your humanity.
For sure.
One doesn't need to be against the other. And it's possible, I truly believe it's possible to work with both.
And the interesting thing was one of the quotes that Dr. Hogan mentioned when we were talking was he was talking about Freddie Fu. Do you know who Freddie Fu is? Freddie Fu was one that started UPMC Sports Medicine.
Yep.
Okay, and now Dr. Hogan runs that now. That he's the head of that now. But he said Freddie Fu was his mentor, and he said, take care of the patients, and the patients will take care of you. Okay?
Yeah. Yep.
And the interesting thing about it is after we published that, I got an email from Larry Gerson telling me that early on in his career, he had a chiropractor that he had been going to, was talking to him about medicine, and echoed very similar sentiment, which he's remembered through his whole career. So, I mean, there's, that's pretty special stuff. And you don't hear that kind of thing too often. And that's the thing that puts the business away.
For sure.
I mean, that literally encapsulates.
Yeah. And, I think Dr. Berger, who owns the clinic where I work now, she runs a really tight ship, and I have to give it to her. She's got this managing thing down, and it doesn't stop me from showing humanity to I know whoever needs it,
Any business needs systems and procedures in place.
Absolutely. And what you need in that regard is to also have some star employees who will go above and beyond.
Yeah.
And, couple years ago, we had a client who's now a client of Pets After Dark, by the way, who was feeling really overwhelmed by their cat's medical condition. And the cat underwent surgery and had his whole colon removed, which is a real tough recovery. And, I was like, my technician and we're going to figure it out. We're going to help you through this. And we went to their house twice a day for a week to help them administer medication and it's just because they were so overwhelmed that they would not have been able to handle this on their own. So we did it because we could, and these people really needed it. This is the kind of thing that, this is what you don't lose sight of is your humanity.
For sure.
That's it.
Yep. And if you lead with that, everything else falls into place.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. My business thrived because I led with passion.
Yep.
And didn't even my end goal, like my focus was not on the money. It was the passion of educating
Yep.
and offering the best products possible.
And then the
So-
money will come.
And it totally,
Right.
I mean,
and then the business grows. The
Yeah.
business grows because you're authentic.
yes.
Yep.
And I think that everybody wants authentic,
Absolutely.
right? I mean, isn't that at the end of the day,
Yep.
Yeah.
you have to work a little bit harder at the beginning to give authentic, right? Authentic's expensive to give.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
But I think if you are willing to extend yourself in a way that you can be decent and honest and present more than anything, present, people see that like that. And then you got them for life. I mean,
For sure.
they're loyal to you forever
For sure.
at that point.
Yep. Just like the guy I put the bag of dog food out back.
I'm sure he was a lifelong customer for sure after that.
Yep.
Right. And he told all his friends also.
Yep. And that's one story that
But it speaks to who you are.
and you going to a client's home every day for a week.
I think both you and I are in the business of helping people.
For sure.
You know, ultimately. And by extension, so do you.
And you hear examples of stories that are the opposite of that.
Yeah.
And they're equally terrible. I told you a story, we won't mention anybody's name, about a friend of mine who needed pet food.
Yep.
And it was just about closing time, and he got to the store to get the pet food, and he saw the people in the store, and the door was locked. And he said, I've been there 1,000 times. They know me. The
Yep.
person inside the store knew me.
Yep.
And wouldn't let him in.
Yep.
So that's the opposite story, and it's terrible.
I know.
And he was so upset about it
I know.
because he said, I don't understand how much business I could give these people without, them.
I know.
So
Here we are.
Here we are.
Good thing we're perfect.
You took the words right out of my mouth. Any closing thoughts? Anything we missed on the 5-part series in the Pets After Dark newsletter about the state of veterinary healthcare?
Here's what I'm going to say about it. I think that unfortunately, or fortunately, I think corporate is here to stay in veterinary medicine.
Yeah.
What we have to do is, instead of being against it, work against it, we have to learn to live with it, and we have to learn to work with it. We have to learn to make it better. We have to humanize it. And, it's so, at the moment, it's so bad for veterinary clinics to be perceived as being owned by corporate that they're not being transparent about it. Like, you think that, veterinary so-and-so is a private clinic, and they don't tell their clients that they're corporate. And I think being more transparent about it would be helpful also. And I think that ultimately there's a way to be humane in that environment.
Do you think that the pet parent has to be more diligent when they, because there's no way for all of us to be able to go to a private practice, right? Because of how many are corporately
I don't
owned
think one's
now.
better than the other. I really don't.
Okay.
I think there's a perception that one's better than the other. But at this point in time, I think that they're just different realities.
Yeah.
And, the economy of scale allows for better purchase power. It will allow for, ultimately better equipment, better paid employees. So there's value in that,
there's also plenty of practices that you think are privately owned that
Are
aren't.
not.
Yeah.
So there's that piece
yeah.
also, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's
So there's more than just the VCA
oh my God.
in front of
Yeah.
right, exactly.
the original
right.
practice
And
name.
there's so many private practices.
And actually, VCA is the only one who's actually openly
Corporate.
marketing their corporation. There's all the other corporations will not actually advertise, like it's still going to be mom and pop vet clinic, and it's owned
their
by
So
information
VCA is straightforward and out
the
there.
only one that's straightforward and out there, and there's something
Interesting.
to be said for that.
VCA is owned by Blue Pearl.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Mars. It's
VCA is
owned by
owned
Mars.
by Mars.
Mars, which
So-
owns Blue Pearl.
Veterinary. So just for our listeners, VCA stands for Veterinary Corporation of America.
Veterinary Centers of America.
Thank you.
America.
I didn't.
Right, which is owned by Mars. Mars also owns Blue Pearl
And
and
Banfield.
Banfield.
And candy bars.
Candy bars and M&Ms.
And,
Exactly.
That daycare.
Right.
What daycare?
Bow Wow. Camp Bow
Bow Wow.
Oh,
Yeah.
right.
It's amazing what you find out when you start digging.
I know. I know.
But I think that, it's such a weird thing in veterinary medicine because do you have an Apple phone? Do you use an Apple phone or a
I have an iPhone.
Android?
I have an iPhone.
Android? Okay, do you have an iPhone?
I've had an Android my entire life until about 2 years ago.
Okay. So what Apple's done really, really well,
What?
okay, is they created an ecosystem with their products. So if you have one Apple product, you sort of feel inclined to, if you have a phone, you feel inclined to get a tablet that's also an Apple product,
And the
which in a
MacBook
MacBook. And what they do is they all kind of
Communicate with one another.
Yeah.
really flawlessly.
Yeah.
I think if you step outside of the myopic thinking of veterinary medicine can't be owned by corporate, if you just step away from that for 1 second and you look and see what Mars is trying to do, with emergency rooms and private clinics and kennels, that's a classic corporate playbook, which is, own as much of the vertical as possible, not just one sector of it, so that you can have everything there for your client. So you can handle your client from a day-to-day in the veterinary, day-to-day wellness to emergency medicine to when I go on vacation, I go to there and they're good. And so I think that, in theory, it's not terrible.
Right.
In practice,
There's ways
still
to
a
go.
lot of work to do.
Right.
And it's the practice of the theory that's still lacking, and I think I go back to Dr. Hogan, and a lot of us will often complain about corporation and human medicine and how, it's terrible and blah, blah, blah. But ultimately it's not, because it's, also allowed them to do a lot of things. But
We have to be advocates for our pets. And same with our own human medicine. We have to be our own advocates for facilitating the right care and what we're expecting.
absolutely. It's always ultimately about, communication. And again, I go back to him. Dr. Hogan said, when I go into an exam room, it's like I'm the pilot and the patient is the co-pilot, and we're flying this plane together.
And that's how it should be.
That's how it should be. I mean, and I think that, you said the other day you were talking to somebody that was going through one of your on-call consultations, and they were going through something terrible, right? Their pet was at the end of their life. And, we called ahead to the emergency room to do a transfer for them to go to the emergency room. So when they got to the emergency room was ready and waiting for them. They had a summary of what was happening.
Yeah.
She talked to the doctor. I mean, that's the piece of human interaction and compassion that I think we're so committed to.
Right.
Right? There's this whole thing. People like to text and people like to SMS and chat, but being able to actually speak to somebody, do a video call with somebody so you can actually talk to them, that's the piece that is, we're not going to let that go.
Right.
That's the piece right there. That's the gold right there, is being able to have a conversation with somebody face to face and see what's going on. If their pet's breathing funny, the on-call vet can see that the pet's breathing funny. Or if the client thinks that the pet's breathing funny, the on-call vet says, nah, they're fine.
Yeah.
That's normal,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
those two things.
Oh, yeah, like last night.
Like last night, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. You know, we have ways to go, but I think that we have to stay the course and just remember what we do this for. It's for people and their pets.
Yep.
I agree. So there's that. Okay. There's that.
Howard is a smart husband.
Yes, he is.
Okay. So I think that's a wrap for Pets After Dark. Thank you both for being here.
It's
Thank
always a
you.
pleasure.
If you don't already subscribe to their newsletter, please do so. If you don't already know about the service that they provide, you really have to check it out. I firsthand have experienced the benefits of it. And if you have their membership, it's a lifesaver. It can be a lifesaver. It can mitigate a small situation. I had a lump on Layla and wasn't really sure what it was. Wasn't going away. Didn't freak out about it. But I reached out to Pets After Dark. Fortunately, Caroline was the one that answered the call. And she said, send me a picture. So I sent a picture. And more than one. And she said, I think we need to have a vet look at this. So I did. And it is a sebaceous cyst. So Layla's going to have a little lump there. Periodic. Come and go, right?
Yeah, come and go.
Come and go and be there pretty much.
That you can squeeze at your leisure sometimes if you want.
It's like Dr. Pimple Popper sitting over
Howard
here.
hates that. Dixie gets those sometimes, and I love to squeeze them.
But it's an amazing service that I highly recommend checking out. Website is
mypetsafterdark.com.
mypetsafterdark.com.
And if you're not a subscriber and you want to just give us a test run, you can also get a single consultation and you get, almost the same service as a subscriber gets, which is, you get connected to a veterinarian right away, local vet, right away. We can do the video calls. We can make a transfer to an ER if you need one.
Submit the summary of call to
your doctor
the regular
knows about it the
veterinarian
next
the
day.
next day. So, we do all that.
Yep.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah. Veterinary records, the whole shebang. You can you can have it all done in like a concierge service.
Pretty much.
So, and that's helping the veterinary industry as well.
Doing your small part.
So, thanks guys.
Thank you. It's great.